Welcome to our channel Book by Book. Today we're diving into a really essential survival guide for leaders. It's Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Building a business when there are no easy answers.
Yeah, this one's critical. And it's not just theory, right? It's wisdom forged in crisis. Real stuff.
Totally. Horowitz, co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, and he wrote this based on his time as CEO of Opsware.
Which itself has quite a backstory. Started as Loud Cloud.
Exactly. And that context is everything. Loud Cloud was, heading for this massive billion-dollar IPO. Seemed like the dream.
Right before the dot-com crash just slammed into everything.
Yeah, so they went from this, huge wave of hype straight to, well, almost collapsing.
Required this incredibly tough pivot just to stay alive. Sold for $1.6 billion eventually, but the journey there, wow.
And that's the heart of the book, isn't it? It just strips away all the romantic notions about startups.
Completely. It focuses on what really happens, behind the scenes, the chaos, the sleepless nights.
The decisions that feel impossible because, well, someone's going to get hurt no matter what you choose. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Horowitz argues the main challenge for a leader isn't really the big strategy or the perfect vision. I mean, those are easier when things are going well.
Right, the easy part, relatively speaking.
The real challenge is navigating the hard things, the inevitable mess, when, the standard management advice just doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, it's really a book about endurance. He makes the case that mental resilience, just the ability to stay in the fight, that matters more than any textbook framework.
So for you listening, the idea is success isn't about dodging problems. You can't.
No, you can't. It's about tackling the awful problems you simply cannot avoid.
Which leads us straight into his first big lesson, embracing what he calls the struggle.
Ah, the struggle. Yeah, that's his term for that phase when it feels like everything is just falling apart all at once.
Like your product's failing, you're running out of cash fast.
Your best employees are heading for the door because the vibe gets toxic, maybe.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not just a rough patch. He describes it as this all-consuming battle for the company's actual survival.
He talks about that Loud Cloud crisis, the sheer terror of it, having to basically gut the business model.
Selling off a division that was actually making money just to fund the hope of another part of the business.
Yeah, these weren't choices between good and bad. It was like bad versus catastrophic.
And his point is, you can't skip this part. If you're trying to build something really ambitious, the struggle is almost mandatory.
You just have to accept it, embrace it somehow, and just outlast it.
The key takeaway sounds so simple, but it's profound. Don't quit.
Right. He literally says, the struggle is where greatness comes from. It's the test, the crucible that shows if you and your company are actually built for it.
That idea of needing to endure, it flows right into the second key lesson he talks about, which is knowing your leadership mode.
The peacetime CEO versus the wartime CEO.
Yeah, and that distinction is incredibly useful. Helps you figure out where you are.
So the peacetime CEO, that's when things are generally stable. Maybe resources are okay, you're focused on growth, optimizing things.
Scaling the culture, improving processes, the nice-to-haves become the must-dos. You can delegate, plan long-term.
But the wartime CEO, that's totally different. That's leading when the company's life is on the line.
Resources are scarce, maybe competitors are attacking, constant pressure.
Survival is the only metric. That's it.
Which means making decisions that are fast, bold, often really unpopular.
And usually with incomplete information. You don't have time for perfect data. Think about that Opsware pivot he describes, shifting the entire company focus almost overnight.
So connecting that back, it makes you ask yourself, right, which mode do you need to be in now?
Because Horowitz warns, if you're acting like a peacetime CEO, focusing on consensus maybe when you should be in wartime.
Prioritizing optimization over just acting decisively.
You could kill the company.
Yeah.
It requires this almost brutal adaptability. You have to be able to switch your whole style based on what's happening outside.
Okay, but switching to wartime, that sounds terrifying for the team. How does he suggest preventing that necessary toughness from just destroying morale?
Well, it really comes down to how you handle things, especially communication, which ties right into the third lesson, culture.
Ah, culture, not the ping pong tables.
But definitely not the perks. He defines culture as, and this is key, how your company makes decisions when you're not around.
Okay.
And that real culture, it only truly shows up under pressure in the tough times.
So let's say you claim transparency is a core value.
Right.
The real test is when you have genuinely bad news, like layoffs or missing targets badly. Do you share it? And do you share it early before the rumors start twisting things?
Exactly. That's the proof. And he warns about, the politics that can creep in, the back channel stuff, the maneuvering when things get tight.
If you tolerate that, or maybe you tolerate a manager who hits all their numbers but treats their team horribly.
That is your culture. Doesn't matter what's written on the wall. What you permit, what you tolerate, that becomes the standard. So you have to actively design it to withstand the chaos.
That idea, what you tolerate, that applies directly to his advice on hiring too. Lesson 4.
Yeah, because most leaders, especially when they're stressed, they tend to hire defensively.
Looking for the safe candidate,
Yeah.
someone well-rounded won't make waves.
Right. Horowitz says do the opposite. Hire for specific outstanding strengths. He calls them spikes.
Spikes, okay.
Don't hire for the absence of weakness. Find people who are truly exceptional at one thing the company desperately needs, even if they're, imperfect elsewhere.
Because mediocrity, even safe mediocrity, just kills innovation in the long run.
Precisely. You need those sparks.
So you're deliberately building a team of, specialists, superheroes maybe, each with a unique power?
Kind of, yeah. But then comes the tricky part, the management challenge. If you hire these brilliant but maybe difficult people,
How do you manage them without letting their weaknesses undermine that culture you just work so hard to build?
well, he's very pragmatic about it. He says, don't waste time trying to fix their flaws. That rarely works.
Okay, so what do you do?
You structure things around them. Design your management system to leverage their spike, their strength, while putting guardrails or buffers in place to minimize the damage from their weaknesses.
Interesting. So you accommodate the strength, manage the weakness. You need the spike more than you need everyone to be easy to manage.
Exactly. You need that exceptional capability.
That focus on the individual and managing difficulty, that brings us to lesson 5. And Horowitz says this one is maybe the hardest job of all.
Which is managing your own psychology as the leader.
Ah, yes. The CEO's paradox, he calls it.
Yeah. You have to be the rock, the source of confidence for everyone, projecting calm certainty.
While inside, you're feeling totally alone, dealing with intense fear, doubt, those classic 3 a.m. panics about making payroll or losing a key customer.
He's brutally honest about it. He says, by far the most difficult skill I learned as a CEO was the ability to manage my own psychology.
And it's not about pretending the fear isn't there. It's about building the resilience so that fear doesn't stop you from acting.
Right. His advice is pretty straightforward, but hard to do consistently. Talk to a few trusted mentors, people who get the pressure.
And ruthlessly focus only on what you can actually control. Tune out the noise.
And then there's that dose of brutal realism again. Nobody cares, just don't quit.
Oof. Yeah.
Meaning you can't expect sympathy or validation from the outside world. You just have to lead. You have to deliver results. The world rewards outcomes, not how hard you tried.
And that ties into results and also honesty with lesson 6, his priorities.
The golden rule he lays out. Take care of the people, take care of the product, and the profits will follow.
And crucially, in that order. People first, then product, then profits. Non-negotiable.
Because companies usually implode when they screw up the people part or forget the customer, right? Chasing short-term profits by burning out your team or cutting corners on the product. It's unsustainable.
So prioritizing trust, supporting your people, especially when delivering bad news like layoffs, that's what builds loyalty for the long haul.
Yeah, when you have to do layoffs, the priorities shift to maintaining the trust of the people who remain.
Which means you can't hide from those incredibly hard conversations. You face them quickly, clearly.
With empathy, yeah. With integrity.
Yeah.
That preserves trust, even through the pain. It helps manage that survivor's guilt for the remaining team, too. Delaying bad news or being unclear, that's toxic.
So if you connect all these dots, the whole book feels like a manual for maintaining integrity when everything is pushing you towards compromise or hiding.
Yeah, it's about how to act like a leader when your gut is just screaming at you to run away or curl up in a ball.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. Let's boil down some actionable takeaways from all this. What can you actually do with this wisdom?
First one's foundational. Accept the struggle. When things get incredibly hard, don't internalize it purely as your failure. See it as the test. It's part of the path if you're doing something meaningful.
Second, know your mode and switch fast. Peacetime or wartime. If it's war, act like it. Be decisive, even with imperfect information. Speed often matters more than perfection in a crisis.
Third, tell the truth, especially the bad news, and tell it fast. Honesty, even when painful, builds trust. Delaying just makes it worse.
Fourth, guard your culture like a hawk. What you tolerate is your culture. Be intolerant of the stuff that undermines it, like politics or toxic behavior, no matter who's doing it.
Fifth, and this is crucial, get help and don't quit. Manage your own psychology. Find mentors. Build your support network. Acknowledge the fear. Don't let it paralyze you. Survival itself is often a form of winning.
And maybe a quote to reflect on, Horowitz says, "Every time you make the hard, correct decision, you become a bit more courageous."
That sums it up well. This book really demolishes the myths. Success isn't about avoiding pain. It's built through enduring pain and acting bravely despite being scared.
So what does this mean for you? Horowitz puts it bluntly. There's no recipe for really complicated dynamic situations. There's just judgment.
Yeah. So the question becomes, what complicated situation are you facing right now where you need to rely on difficult, courageous judgment rather than looking for some easy checklist?
That's the challenge he leaves us with. If you found this book summary helpful, please do make sure to subscribe to our channel, Book by Book.
Yeah, and share it with others who might need to hear this right now.
And hitting that like button, it really does motivate us to keep digging into these books and bringing you the best summaries we can. Thanks for listening.